refugees in several countries before I arrived here. I worked with the Jesuit Refugee Services for several years, and I've worked with the expert United Nations lawyers from Geneva as a case processing officer, helping them in dealing with the refugees. So you are speaking, or you are talking, or you are listening from the experienced expert in refugees and migration. So this is my advice to our government, Prime Minister Kane, and the Minister of Citizenship, Mayor BC Premier David Ebb, our friend. Please let us, all of us, join together Canada worldwide, nationwide, to condemn the wrongful, corrupted, wrongful deportation of our refugees. The Black Lives Matter, and it matters now. I've mentioned that. So let's correct those errors. And secondly, the strict enforcement policies. Please, Canada Border Services, this information is for you. Stop strict enforcement policies. When you find our refugees on the Sky Train, and you ask them, you always enter the Sky Train, targeting where is the black person is. Whenever you enter the bus, police officers in Vancouver or in Canada, in Toronto, often you enter to look for of course, the fare, maybe transport fare for the Sky Train or the bus. But when you enter, your eyes will see, you are watching you. They are always targeting, where is the black person here? The moment you land on those guys, you always asking them, show me how did you came to Canada? Why is it so matter for asking me on the Sky Train? How did I came to Canada? Why did I came to do in Canada? Am I a student? No, please. The enforcement officers, CBSA, what you are looking for, be clear. You are looking to know whether these people are aliens in Canada. You are looking to find out whether these people, they have documents allowing them to stay in the country. That's what you are looking for. And this is really very bad, because most cases you are targeting these people, even if they're international student. You invite them, you call them nicely to come to Canada Border Service. When they arrive there, you issue immediate deportation. I have appeared at the CBSA office in Vancouver, West Georgia, a number of times to rescue these people. A person is a refugee claimant. Canada Border Services has no intelligence officer, has no moral authority to capture these people wherever they are, from their places of where they live, and put them on the plane. You order them to leave Canada. This is wrongful deportation of African immigrants, and they are the highest number of victims in this country. Of course, you know, black people, they are the highest number of inmates in prison on the charges of stereotyping, racial profiling, and of course, this racial profiling and stereotyping affecting immigrants from Africa to be approved. We need to condemn this, all of us together, human rights organizations across the country who watch my video. We need to stand up and condemn this illegal deportation. We need to change corruption from the immigration agencies to make it better, because Canada is for all of us. Canada, there is no any person in this country called the Canadian. All of us, we are immigrants, including the Prime Minister, including the BC Premier, including Toronto Premier. All of us, we are immigrants. It doesn't matter where you came from. The land belongs to the indigenous people. Number three, the systematic issue, racism. Asylum seeker in Canada, they face the reality is racism, stereotyping, racial profiling. Wherever you see all of these refugees, many of our refugees, they lack a cultural identity, the cultural connection. There is no welcoming center for African immigrants. So this becomes the victims of racial discrimination. And the immigration, we need to transform immigration refugee protection division, where our refugee present their application. We need to transform the RAD, Refugee Appeal Division, where a lot of our refugee cases faces serious discrimination right there. because of wrongful assessment. Let us have a fair judgment of these refugee claimants by approving their evidences without reasonable doubt, because that protection is granted them under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Protection of Refugees in 1951. And then we need to cancel all of the deportation orders, and then we grant our refugee claimant, approve them in Canada as refugees. And then last point, it is on. So thank you so much again. I mentioned my point that systematic issues, the systematic issues, what you call systematic racism. Of course, we cannot talk about the wrongful deportation of African immigrants out of this country without mentioning that there is a fact of racial, this is done based on racial ground, systematic racism. Canada has been with a longer time history of racism against the black community. Unfortunately, that this is not known to the global community. However, whenever we bring this issue, some people, they question, are there existence of black people in Canada? Black people, they have been in this country, people of African descent have been in Canada for over 550 years, even before the foundation of Canada. But there is the exclusivity or exclusive of Africans out of this country, being pushed out. We've been to this country even before, and the concept of systematic racism has already become a very serious, sensitive matter. Why Africans, whenever they come to Canada, they always being faces push out, they push them. You know, they decline their documents. You know, there is that tension over who should be included, admissible and inadmissibility. It is because of there is lack of appropriate cultural services, which also becomes a serious problem affecting our legal representation. Lack of cultural proper services, I mean, there is inadequate or there is lack of African immigrant organizations or African association. Many of them, for example, here in BC, we have the Center for Integration of African Immigrant. There is the Umoja, Cooperation and Compassion, African Descent Society, but still these organizations, they are not strong enough to support the accommodation of these immigrants. And when immigrants come here, a lot of them, they just go to different organizations where they could be maybe accommodated temporarily. But the fact that there is that racism, they always get wrongful assessment, and then the deportation becomes inevitable. We need to make changes and protect African refugees as soon as possible. Lawyers, judges, this is a call. These refugees need serious attention. And the detention and the deportation while application are pending. Detention, deportation, while application are still pending. I don't understand our Prime Minister, Mr. Kane. I don't understand our Minister of Immigration Refugee Canada citizen Canada. I don't understand this. I don't understand this to our Supreme Court of Canada. I don't understand this to Canada Border Service. I don't understand this Refugee Protection Division and the Refugee Appeal Division. I don't understand this. When a refugee has been detained, his case is still pending, the lawyers, they are still working on his case, and you issue a deportation order. When the Canada Border Service find these people, they deport them back home, even if their files are still pending. Why there is a rush? Why there is such strict enforcement? Why there is such brutal deportation, wrongful deportation of these innocent immigrants? The government, which recognizes the International Convention on the Rights of Refugees, the government which supports and defends the Universal Declaration for Human Rights. It was written by Canadian. It should not violate such laws and deport a refugee whose cases are still in the courts of Canada or are still in the Citizenship and Migration Canada. Please, we call this to an end. The judicial review. Some of the refugees, they receive cases through refugee appeal division. They may decline their appeals and they refer them to the federal review cases for the hearing or appeal for the federal review case. As a refugee is working on his application, if a refugee is being rejected or being issued a removal order will be issued, and then that means that the Canada Federal Court will go through that process either to determine whether they revert that review and they grant him admissibility to Canada. But even during that process, refugees, they always faces a high risk of being deported back home. Their employment permit will be cancelled, and of course, Immigration and Refugee Board, IRB, it should have been responsible for all appeals and the removal order. Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada, they are the one who are responsible under this. Appeals and issuing deportation order or rejecting these deportation orders. Please, we want to make Canada a better place, a welcoming place, a place where everybody is feel safe to be welcomed, and the place where we know that the rules of law works very well and being respected.